Well, anyway, Alvin, if you just call roll call, that'll help us get started.
Okay, Christopher Collins,
Here.
Commissioner Martinez.
Here.
Oops. Sorry. Commissioner Alminas,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller is absent. Commissioner Jones is absent. Commissioner Ryan is absent. And I apologize. I don't.
Bonjourni.
Okay, Commissioner Bonjourni.
Yeah.
Okay. We have a request from Councilor Fenton that he has another meeting he has to go to take item 5A out of order. So, Councilor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. I appreciate the accommodation and for hearing this tonight. The item that's on your agenda is to discuss the concept of the Conservation Commission acquiring a property off of Liberty Street, which was formerly the site of a business known as Liberty Ice and Hogan Ponds recreation area. The city, through the city itself, the Conservation Commission, and the Housing Authority, has over 75 acres of what I would describe as conservation land that spans essentially from the Chicopee line in Springfield off of Newberry Street, behind Doyle Avenue, Whitmore, and Thornfell Street, all the way to the back of Big Y on St. James Avenue and Van Sickle School. And those 75 acres are interrupted by approximately 5 acres of frontage on Liberty Street, which are currently owned by the O'Connell Oil Company. Those parcels were the previous site of the Liberty Ice business and an associated gas station that they operated. After the dissolution of the business and the conveyance of that approximately 75 acres to the city for conservation of the Abbey Brook area, the O'Connell Oil Company came to own these approximately 5.3 acres. And again, these acres separate the two main parcels, one being the Abbey Brook section that's behind the Springfield Plaza and Van Sickle School, and the other being on the other side of Liberty Street over behind Academy Hill School, WGGB news station, and going all the way up to the Chicopee line. So after many years of conversations about the future of that site, those 5 acres, which are zoned business and would permit a gas station to be located on there, and a variety of recently failed attempts by commercial developers to pursue development in this otherwise residential and conservation area, I began working with the Hungry Hill Neighborhood Council and the Office of Planning and Economic Development to discuss the possibility of pursuing funding through the Community Preservation Act to acquire these 5 acres owned by O'Connell Oil, in the interest of connecting these two otherwise non-contiguous conservation pieces of property. And we actually have, so you can get a better feeling for where it is. I don't have the ability to currently share my screen on the device that I'm on, but
I can do it for you, yeah.
That would be great. If Tina's gonna show you a couple of maps that I put together that outline these two parcels. So the yellow, can everybody see that image?
Yep.
Okay, so the yellow parcel, oh, it just went away.
We could.
Sorry, hang on one second.
It's okay.
There we go.
Okay, so the yellow section to your right is an area known as what I'll call Abbey Brook East. And that parcel is the mostly conservation, partially Springfield Housing Authority owned parcel that is behind the Springfield Plaza to the north and Van Sickle School to the south off of Cruz Street, and to the far east, that's what I'll call the Big Y Plaza on St. James. To the left, the yellow parcel to the left is mostly conservation and city. It's all city and or conservation controlled parcels. And I'll call that Abbey Brook West. And that is the parcel that abuts behind Academy Hill School off of Newberry Street and all the way up to the north to the Chicopee line. What you see in red is a group of undeveloped parcels that are owned by the O'Connell Oil Corporation that I am asking the Conservation Commission to pursue acquiring to unite these otherwise two very large aggregate of 75 acres of parcels to connect these two sections of Abbey Brook and to prohibit future commercial development of this otherwise residential and conservation driven site. Without these parcels, there is no opportunity to connect the east and the west portions of Abbey Brook for conservation purposes. You'll see a little bit to the north of where that red box is and the proposed area to be required. That is owned by the Springfield Plaza, the entities that own the Springfield Plaza and the liquor store that's behind the Stop and Shop. We're not proposing to acquire that site. Don't think there's any risk that it be developed commercially, and are instead requesting that just the red section owned by O'Connell Oil be acquired. A few more updates and observations. We have and intend to submit a CPA application in 2 days on Thursday. And the current applicants for this project for the preliminary application are the Office of Planning and Economic Development and the Hungry Hill Neighborhood Council. So my request tonight is that the Conservation Commission deliberate on whether they'd be interested in joining that application as a co-applicant in hopes that we could get some funding from the CPC and potentially other sources, including maybe sources available to the Concom or the city, so that we can acquire those 5 acres and reunite the east and the west. I have had discussions with the O'Connell Oil Company about this. I wanted to make sure that they were aware that we were going to be discussing in a public forum the possibility of the city acquiring these parcels. And the representative of the family that I spoke to said that they'd be very interested and open to talking about a friendly eminent domain taking. And they acknowledge that although it is business zoned, their attempts to develop it for commercial purposes have failed for many years, and any future attempts to do that they recognize would be inconsistent with the neighborhood's wishes and the wishes of the legacy of this site, which were for conservation. So I guess the request is that you deliberate on this and decide if you'd like to be a co-applicant with us. The proposal would be for to request $700,000 in funding. I don't know if it'll all come from the CPC or if they'll agree to give us a portion and we come up with portions from other locations. The reason for this request for funding at this time is that the total assessed value of those parcels that we showed you in red is approximately $650,000 or $660,000. So we're expecting that acquisition costs would be somewhere in that range, and with a long-term goal of acquiring it, cleaning and preserving it, and installing some perhaps signage to highlight the fact that there's a city-controlled conservation space that is Abbey Brook, and is an important resource that's, been, just to say a little bit about Abbey Brook, it's been a part of the Department of Conservation and Recreation programming through the state over the course of the past decade. I know that they've run programming out of there, and having it preserved and connecting the East and the West is really the concept here. So I know I just threw an awful lot of information at you, but at this point, all we're asking is whether the Concom would be interested in being a co-applicant with the Office of Planning and Economic Development and the Hungry Hill Neighborhood Council to request funds from the CPC for this project. And if the answer to that is yes tonight, I would file that application on Thursday, and would proceed through the CPC process and be back in touch with the Conservation Commission about any funding deficits or results of future efforts.
Question, Counselor. If the commission did decide to become a co-applicant, would that eliminate our representative from voting?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Counselor Fenton, perhaps the best answer, without being able to immediately answer that, is to have the Conservation Commission at least vote to submit a letter of support for the application. And then you could kind of go from there around whether they get amended in as a co-applicant, if the CPC would be open to that.
Yeah, that would be great. And certainly don't want to create a conflict if we don't need to. So a letter of support would be terrific. Whatever input you have, we would be interested in. Obviously, I don't want to diminish the work that's been done, because there is quite a bit of work that's been done to get us to this point. However, we're not close to done with this. We're a long way from done with this project, and we're just interested in knowing if you like the concept and would like to support us in exploring it further.
I have a quick.
Go ahead, Juanita.
I don't know if I quite understand you, Chris, but did you mean like, because we have in the past presented an application to the CPC. We submitted the first go round. Is that what you mean? Or I'm
When we submitted, were you allowed to, you were our rep, right?
right.
Were you allowed to vote?
I actually think I did. But we could find that out. But even if I didn't vote, we would have enough people. We would have a quorum.
Oh, I'm sure you would. I'd like you to have the opportunity, if you're of a support.
I mean, the beauty of having the CPA, I mean, the Conservation Commission, too many C's here. The Conservation Commission would be co-applicants, is that the more different agencies and that submit to the CPA, to the CPC, the application looks better if there are more. So it would be very helpful.
Commissioner
I also
Connell.
have another question. There is a little piece of land that belongs to the plaza. That be joined in on this? I know it would probably bring the price up, but I mean, because then that would really, because it just seems that little piece and they can't really use it. It might be an in-kind gift that they could give. Could you bring that up again?
Yeah, Tina, if you could call up the map. Juanita, I agree. It'd be great to get it. This is already a pretty big project, and I'm trying not to bite off more than we can chew. That parcel that you see, Tina, can you put your cursor over where that white building in the parcel she's describing? Yeah, that's the liquor store. and that whole parcel where
Oh.
the vacant land, that's all one parcel. So, if we
Oh.
were to acquire a portion of that, we'd need them to subdivide it with an A&R plan and then agree to gift it to us. I mean, certainly that would be great. But I have three reservations about that. The first is it would require the A&R plan, which takes time. The second is that the property is currently not developable. So I'm not worried about it like coming into private hands and ending up as a gas station. The topography there, if you're not familiar with the site, that's basically a cliff behind the Springfield Plaza liquor store. And given the location of the Abbey Brook wetlands, there is no feasible way that parcel will ever be developed. So it's not what I see as a risk of being intruding on the conservation area. And the last item would just be cost, because if they were going to do all that, we would have to pay for it. And I think the 700 is already a pretty big pill to swallow. So
Oh, no, I was just thinking if they gave it in kind, I mean, if they just gave it to us.
that would be great. Yeah, I
Because
would.
it's not, I mean, I guess it would just need some conversation with them. I mean, it's not something that they're ever gonna do anything with, so. I didn't mean pay for it, I meant,
Oh, no, and certainly beyond the scope of this would be discussion down the road, I would think. There's a
Yeah.
lot of reasons why they might want to gift it, but we shouldn't tie it up with this conversation and
Okay.
then elongate the whole issue. Because as Councilor Fenton says, there's no way that land's developable.
Yeah.
Quite
But,
honestly,
you know,
surprised, other than the cost of subdividing, I'm surprised they haven't gifted it to get rid of it. But there is some cost to doing the subdivision too.
and conversely, the parcels in red are what I would describe as ripe for development. They've been marketed and they are properly zoned for a strip mall, which was the most recent proposal, and a gas station. So I think quite candidly, part of the reason that success hasn't happened has been because the company who acquired it and wanted to build it as a gas station ultimately saw some saturation in the market because the plaza got a gas station a little later. And so when that gas station came in, it sort of put a monkey wrench in their plans. And the company that owns these parcels, they're not real estate developers, they're gas station developers. So
Mhm.
they're not accustomed to being in this position. And after having spoken to some of the members of the family, one of the members of the family and their real estate agent, they have a few parcels like this across Massachusetts where they bought something thinking they'd make it a gas station, and then afterwards they just sort of hung on to it and forgot about it. So, they could, I think, relatively easily unload this to a real estate developer who would have a lot of rights to do quite a bit of commercial development here.
That's interesting in the bottom of the picture, which is probably south by Granny Street. That
Yep.
little stub there is interesting.
There's a history for it. I could tell you at a different time if you cared to hear it, but that
Okay.
that was preserved as a potential access.
It was-
And
I was
that is-
looking at that. Was that to put a street in there for development? Okay.
which
But it would
be a
make,
very-
it would still make a great access to the area.
It
With some
would.
signage, that's a nice little walkway. Not that those people would probably want it, but
Well, probably more appropriate off Mora Street and Mayor Street at that intersection there.
Right.
That's a much bigger space. If you visit the site, that property on Granny Street, I actually know the people who lived there for many years and just sold it. That is not, if you drive by that just looks like somebody's side yard. I think it's even fenced, despite the fact that it's on McDonald. So
I was gonna say, I'll bet you that has become somebody's yard at some point over the years.
mhm.
Okay, so now Juanita, one question for you. You've been on the board for a while. Park Department's gotten a number of grants, right?
Yes,
They have a member on there. Has their member voted on the grants that were given to the Park Department?
yeah, yes,
Okay.
he has actually. They've got, yeah, yes. I think that's not an issue. I mean, I can find out, but I think
It
it's not
probably
an issue.
isn't, because there's several departments that are recognized by the
Right.
statute itself.
Because it's a
so-
different, yeah, yeah,
And they were assigned voting rights for those particular purposes, so.
right. And
Okay.
housing as well. Yeah.
Are the commissioners, any other commissioners have any thoughts on actually joining and being a co-applicant? Anybody have any opposition to becoming a co-applicant? Then would someone make a motion to actually have us join as a co-applicant?
I'll make a motion to join as a co-applicant.
Thank you, Peter. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Juanita. Alvin, if you'd call the roll.
Yes, for the vote for a certificate, I'm sorry, for a letter of support.
Not
Commissioner-
letter support, to become a co-applicant.
Okay, to become a co-applicant, but essentially you also need a letter of support, so you have to vote for that as well.
Okay, then,
Okay, so to become a co-applicant, Commissioner Collins,
yes,
Commissioner Martinez,
Yes,
Commissioner Alvenaz,
Yes.
and Commissioner
Yes.
Bonjour.
you
More
know,
than-
Tina, could you just put that up one more time? The last one you had. Okay, see on the very top, if you bring your cursor right up to the top, and then that little piece that's sticking, well, that, but right where, no, where you just had it, right there.
Yeah.
What is that piece? I mean, shouldn't that just go right out to the street? What is that little piece in there?
That's,
owned by the
that's,
plaza.
yeah, that's owned by it's the same parcel as the Plaza Liquor Store, and it's just frontage that they control. So,
Oh,
certainly we'd love to have it. And
because it
maybe,
doesn't, I mean, it doesn't look it's probably the size of the width of a street. I
it's
mean,
a-
now look at Liberty Street and that. I mean, it's not a very big piece of property.
well, it is, because that piece of frontage there is included in the much larger piece
Yeah.
where the plaza is.
Right, but I just meant that little piece right where you have the arrow now going straight to the street. Yeah, just.
They could,
anyway,
they could do an A&R plan and give it to us for sure.
Yeah. Because it's so narrow for the bigger piece that they own. Do you know where I'm talking? That,
I-
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, all right.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Counselor.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair and members. We'll be back in touch after the CPC goes through their process, and hopefully we get some money to proceed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go back to the regular agenda. And I think the Good Garvey is up for petition 7269. If I am correct, right? You still on, Good Garvey?
I
Peter?
am, and we have
Oh.
Dan Delaney on our team. That's our designer for Central High School. So I'll let him speak to the project, and we have Will Callahan, which is the project manager on as well.
Okay,
Hi, everyone. Everybody can hear me all right?
yes.
Oh, beautiful. All right. Well, thanks for having us tonight. We have been working with the city for about the last year on this project at Central High School, which is to replace the existing baseball field and the adjacent practice field with a synthetic turf fields for both uses. And the purpose of this application is an RDA under the Wetlands Protection Act to determine if the project falls under the act. There is one small portion of the project that falls within the 100-foot buffer to BVW. So if you don't mind, I can share my screen and I'll give you an introduction to the site, and then we can talk about that one area. And then I'd be happy to answer any questions
Sure.
on the project. All right. Let's see if I share the right screen. There we go. All right. Everybody see the aerial image of the Central High School?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't want to take for granted that everybody knew the site. So just to back out a little bit, Bay Street across the top, north is straight up. And this is obviously the school building here, high school football field and track. This road here is the Blunt Park roadway, entering Blunt Park, or the internal roadway in Blunt Park. And this is the existing baseball field here. And you can see the outfield fence. And then this area is a kind of a multi-sport field. They use it as a practice field for a number of sports. So if you zoom in slightly, you can get a better sense. So our project area is roughly bounded by the existing fence line. We're not changing the footprint of the area at all. If you could see my cursor, I'm just drawing an outline around our project area. And it's an in-kind replacement in terms of the footprint of the project. The footprint of the project is going to stay within this area. So all of the work is to the east or to the right in this view of the Blunt Park roadway. And anybody who's ever been out there, you know that the roadway kind of closely follows the edge of the baseball field here, the backside of the baseball field. The two wetland areas that were adjacent to the project, excuse me, there is an kind of a BVW, an area of BVW in this wooded area to the west of the Blunt Park roadway, down gradient and to the west of the roadway. And then in this wooded area here, there's a small area of isolated vegetated wetland. This area is more than 100 feet away from the edge of our project, but it does show up on the project plan. So I just wanted to call that out. So when I flip over to the plans, you see it, you'll know why it's there. So, and just visually, the portion of the project, if that wetland area kind of snakes its way along where my cursor is following here. So the area of the project just includes about 40 to 50 feet of this fence area here that happens to fall within the 100-foot buffer to BVW. Everything else is outside of that area. So now what I'll do is flip over to the project site plan. And hopefully you all can see that PDF of the plan now.
Yes.
All right. So I'll zoom in a little bit. So like I was saying before, the orientation here is the same. North is essentially straight up. You'd see the existing baseball field, and this is the existing conditions plan. So this is basically just a survey version of what I was just showing you. So you have the existing baseball diamond, the rough outline of the soccer field. The very edge of the tennis courts is right here. And this is the bottom of the track here for the high school football field. And the Blunt Park roadway shown right here. So that, like as I said, follows right along the west side of the baseball field. So the edge of the BVW is off-site, or excuse me, down gradient and to the west of the roadway. And this is the flag limits of the edge of the BVW parallel to the project area. This line type here, and you can see the call out, is the 100-foot buffer to BVW. So as you can see, it enters our project area right here and then exits it. So this area of the fence line, if you zoom in, this is the buffer, the edge of the 100-foot buffer. And this is the existing fence that forms it's well outside of the left field line. You can see the left field line, or the baseline's here and the foul pole's here. So it's well outside of the actual field itself in terms of the field of play, but that's the perimeter fence for the whole complex. Going to the south, this is the area of isolated vegetated wetland that was identified during our field screening last year. We did not show a buffer to that because under the Wetlands Protection Act, there's no buffer to IBW, but it is more than 100 feet away from our proposed work in this area, which follows the existing fence. There is an existing fence line along the bottom of the baseball field that we intend to leave in place. So that will mark the southern boundary of our disturbance. This walkway, it's called a woods path. If you've been out there, it's pretty well defined. This walkway will not be disturbed. That path will stay. That's within sort of the wooded area of Blunt Park. And then our project will extend further to the east here to replace this the soccer field area. They're calling it a soccer field because that's what it was during the time of the survey. It's used for a number of different applications. So any questions on the existing conditions? I'll jump ahead and I'll just show what our proposed condition will be.
Oh,
Okay. So just hop ahead here. So this is our layout plan. It's just the cleaner of the plans. So what we're showing here, you can actually see we've slightly redefined the edge of the baseball field and brought that in kind of to be a more traditional baseball layout, and also to to kind of clean up that left field line. There was a huge amount of foul territory, if you will. So that cleaned that up. So this is the edge of our proposed field now. And this same line type conventions. Here's the edge of BVW. This is the Blunt Park roadway. And this is the buffer here. You can see in the proposed condition, it just barely touches the edge of our proposed edge of field. The field itself, so home plate is essentially in the exact same spot it's in. So we're not altering the field orientation at all. In fact, the dugouts are being reused. The dugouts are fairly new. So the field was designed around keeping the existing dugouts and the orientation of the field. And then moving to the east, that, as I mentioned before, the fence line along the bottom will stay. So this whole fence line is staying in place, kind of the line of demarcation between the edge of the sports field and the wooded area of Blunt Park. And then this portion of the turf field will be a multi-use field. It will be set up basically, the design of it is for a softball field primarily, and then all the other sports will be marked as for use in practice and for gameplay as well. So there'll be lacrosse, soccer, and baseball field markings on the field, as well as goalposts, removable soccer goals, and removable lacrosse goals as well. So in terms of as I mentioned, the impact or the reason for the RDA, that the footprint of the project is not changing. All we're doing is replacing what's there now with synthetic turf, and the area that falls on the area of the project that falls under the jurisdictional area of the commission is extremely small, and essentially is in this this upper corner here. So any questions on the overall layout of the project, or any other questions from the commission or anyone on the line?
not a question, just a comment on the isolated wetland to the south. While it doesn't meet state jurisdiction, it meets the city ordinance, and there are buffer zones in the city ordinance. Just for your future reference,
Okay.
when you're doing that you should show buffer zone. And then if you do any other plans in the future, it's over the 100 feet anyway. So it shouldn't bother us this evening.
Okay, thank you. That is an oversight on our part. I apologize.
I also have a question. So right now, there is not AstroTurf. It's all grass right now?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
And
Are you
if I
gonna
could,
talk about, are you gonna talk about the AstroTurf you're putting down?
Well, it's going out to bid, so we don't know the exact manufacturer, but the plan is we've specified, a product specifically for baseball on the baseball field and a slightly different product on the multi-use field, something that's more catered towards, the ability to withstand different types of movement. But it's, the primary supplier for this is Shaw Turf. That's what we specified. We did the design work for the Pope Francis project several years ago when they replaced that field, or they replaced the whole high school, but when they added the turf field. And that's what we used as a initial start for this. Obviously, the baseball product is slightly different, but they're all the manufacturers, all the big manufacturers carry it. And AstroTurf actually is a brand name. There is a company still called AstroTurf. We don't know which brand we're going to get, but they're all, I don't want to say they're all the same because they're not, they're similar, very similar in design, that's been tweaked over the years. But I'm not an expert on the turf itself, but it's going to be very similar to what's on the football field and or what's over at Pope Francis.
But the field is permeable. It's not like we hold water. It's permeable and so if you can go into that a little bit, Dan.
Sure. The both of the fields have a pretty substantial cross section, and they include a series of under drains. A lot, there's quite a substantial cost. Actually, I can flip ahead to the let me zoom out to the drainage plan. Oh, no, I didn't. Let me just skip ahead. I had two different plan sets up here because I wasn't sure what the questions would be. So this kind of shows graphically what is included in the turf field in terms of the under drainage. One of the things that's kind of nice about these fields is that they're extremely porous. They don't hold surface water, and they have virtually no runoff. So what you do is you have a pretty thick cross section. It includes, several stone layers, and then an under drain system under that with perforated pipe that eventually collects the water, whatever water that doesn't percolate into the ground. And then that's tied into the same drainage system that's out there now. There is some field drains out in that area now. So there's the system is tied in this location here, adjacent to the football field. It's the same. I don't know exactly what the design of the football field is. We didn't do that, but they're all similar. So this is tying into the same outlet from the football field. But there's a pretty substantial amount of under drainage and various drainage structures within the field to make sure that the field remains. One of the greatest advantages of it is it's typically playable within hours of a heavy rain, whereas that would preclude you from playing for a day or more on a grass field. So that's obviously one of the advantages.
Juanita, were you going towards the issue of carcinogens and that? Is that what you're?
No, I guess I was going
Dan,
with
if I
another.
could just add,
Oh.
one thing that's nice is the synthetic turf field.
I think.
Oh, one.
Am I the only
Sorry,
one who's having trouble
I might have
hearing?
got cut off, but I was just going to say one thing that's they don't really require as much maintenance, and for
Yeah, there'll be no
I'm losing
fertilizer.
everybody. I'll try again in a sec.
Yeah, I know. I think I could fill in for you. Well, I know we've we've had that issue before in the use of, herbicides, pesticides and things like that on, obviously there's none of that used at all on a turf field. So there is some advantages, whether that outweighs other people's concerns, that's kind of, that's always a debate, but it's definitely an advantage to not have the constant application of fertilizer, lime and
Yeah,
pesticides.
I think what I was going for more is, I've been doing some reading on astroturfs, using that as a broad word, all astroturfs, is the splitting up in the tiny pieces of microplastics. And that's pretty common in all of the astroturfs. In fact, kids bring them home on their shoes. They're those little tiny pieces of plastic that get into our waterways. And there's really no, it's all astroturfs have that, that they split those micro pieces of plastic. And that's becoming a major issue in all our waterways and in the oceans right now. I mean, I don't know if anybody else has been hearing about the microplastics and.
I have heard of that issue. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, kids that have been on those astroturfs, they bring it home. It's around the edges of it. It does split. They're like little beads, tiny ones.
Commissioner Collins, I just want to recognize Commissioner Ryan is also on the call.
Oh, thank you. Are there other questions or comments or concerns? Hearing none, a motion to that it is applicable to the law but does not require a filing would be in order. Alvin, you'll see that on the form where you check that while technically it is applicable to the Wetlands Protection Act, the work that has been proposed does not require a filing of a notice of intent. So does someone want to make that motion?
I'll make a motion to issue an order that the project is not subject to filing, but is applicable.
Thank you, Peter. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Juanita. Alvin, would you call the roll?
Yes, Commissioner Collins,
Yes.
Commissioner Martinez,
Yes.
Commissioner Alminas,
Yes.
Commissioner Bongiorni,
Yes.
Commissioner Ryan. Commissioner Ryan,
Staying, I came in late. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Have a good night.
Appreciate your help, buddy.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
You don't want to see me surfing eBay after we get off the phone.
Probably not.
Have a good night, everybody.
So it might be interesting what you're surfing for.
It's all
Oh,
model-
you can tell
all
by
mo-
his background.
I was gonna say it's all model trains and models. Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks. Okay, so that brings us to item 4, which is a certificate of compliance for 25 Mill Street. All of the necessary paperwork has been submitted. Phil and I reviewed it. If you guys are aware of 25 Mill, that's where the Tavern Restaurant used to be. So that's along the Mill River there. But all the work that was done under their order was completed according to the way the order asked for it to be completed. So a motion to issue a certificate of compliance would be in order.
I'll make a motion, we issue a certificate of compliance for number 7311.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Peter. Alvin, if you'd call the roll?
Yes, Commissioner Collins,
Yes.
Commissioner Martinez,
Yes,
Commissioner Almanis,
Yes.
Commissioner Bongiorni,
Yes.
and Commissioner Ryan.
I read that, yes.
Okay. Having gone through the agenda, if no one has anything that they want to bring up, then an motion to adjourn.
and just before, we'll be notified if we have the next meeting. I'm sure Phil will tell us.
Yeah,
what-
I've got a, Alvin, was it extended to May or through March, the original order? Did you guys find that out?
So, yeah, I chatted with Phil earlier today, and he has not heard anything. So as far as he knows, the next meeting we will be meeting in person. But he will try to get clarification on that.
Okay, I said earlier, I don't know if everybody was on then, that they did put something in with the budget language about putting in rules for meeting virtually, but being part of the budget, it's not going to pass quickly unless they pull it off the budget. So I would expect that our next meeting will be live. But if it isn't, we'll let you know. We'll send you a notification.
So I also just wanted to add, so we will have a sheet for signatures tomorrow for the certificate of compliance that was approved for the 25 Mill Street, as well as we have one previously from Plumtree Road, which we're still looking for signatures from both Fred and Frank.
So if you could give Fred and Frank a call on that, and if you could get in tomorrow or the next day, it's my understanding that they're trying to close on that property on Mill Street on Friday. So the certificate of compliance is timely. So I'll go there tomorrow, Alvin, to sign.
I'll go there. I'll go there as well. Yeah.
So if we can get as many people as possible so that they at least have 4 signatures,
Is
that would be.
is that at 70 Chapley?
That's correct.
Yes.
Thank you.
And usually all you have to do is go to the front window.
Yep, I'll go.
Okay. Okay, then a motion to adjourn is in order.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Peter.
And everybody says yes.
Well, I think Alvin has to call the roll because we're still on Zoom.
Oh,
All right, we have a second. Just want to make sure we have a second.
all right, I'll second.
Okay. I can call roll. All right, Commissioner Collins,
Yes.
Commissioner Martinez,
Yes.
Commissioner Almanis,
Yes.
Commissioner Bongiorni.
Yes.
Commissioner Ryan. Commissioner Ryan.
Commissioner Ryan?
Yes, it sounded like somebody else's name.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone.